All right, it is 7 p.m. and this is the January 9th, 2024 District 59 Board of Education meeting. Can I get a roll call vote? Secretary Espino?
Sí. Okay, I think, yeah.
You're good.
Zach,
Present.
Espino present, Johnson,
Here.
Mancia,
Here.
Sager,
Here.
Schumacher, okay, Chesney.
Here.
Okay.
All right, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, due to the weather today, the Claremont Wellness Warriors, who were scheduled to give presentations at this board meeting, will instead give a presentation at our Committee of the Whole meeting on the 22nd. All right, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I got the date correct. That moves us on to comments and suggestions from the public. Did anybody sign in? I don't see anyone here. Okay, that moves us on to superintendent's reports. Are we going to do FOIA then this or?
Yeah, so we are going to actually begin. We're going to switch it up and begin with our early learning presentation. We have 3 of our outstanding leadership team members with us this evening to help present on the ELC, and we want to make sure they get home safely as well. So we're going to let them come up and begin their presentation on our early learning center.
All right, good evening. Thank you for a little bit of time today. My name is Elizabeth Degree. I'm the Executive Director of Educational Services, and I have some of my colleagues here who will help me present. I'll have them introduce themselves.
I'm Michelle Ramsey, Principal at the ELC. And I'm Melissa Ward, the Early Childhood Coordinator.
All right, so we are here to do an overview of early learning. You want to move our slides? All right, so we're going to just review 4 quick things today. We're going to talk a little bit about types of programming. We're going to review some historical trends of our programming, look at requirements of the various types of programs that the district offers, and then we're going to offer some potential possibilities for planning for the future. All right, so types of programming. I think Ms. Ramsey is going to start.
Types of programming, that is me. So a snapshot, our total enrollment is 365 students. Preschool for all enrollment is 104. Blended, so non-PFA classrooms have 261 students. We have 166 students with IEPs and 145 students participating in our tuition programming. Mm-hmm. These numbers are constantly changing. We have students move in and out. We have students begin as they age in on their 3rd birthday. So those numbers are pretty fluid. Programs that we have, we do offer special education programming for children who have a disability. We have grant-based programming, which is our Preschool for All programming, funded by a state grant for children who meet at-risk program criteria. And then we also offer tuition-based programming for children who are typically developing. Our special education program eligibility. So special education preschool is for children who have been identified as having 1 or more of 14 specific disability categories, funded as part of the federal IDEA grant at $55,917 for school year 24. Students may participate in a range of services, special education and related services. So we offer resource services, and that's when the child is brought to school for a weekly appointment to receive their therapy. So as an example, they may come in and get speech services once a week, something like that. We also have early childhood blended classrooms. So that's a mix of students with and without disabilities in the classroom. And then we have our early childhood instructional structured teaching classroom. And those are our classrooms that are self-contained and have only students with disabilities. We are required, CCSD59 is required to provide special education programming for preschool children. Our Preschool for All program eligibility. So our PFA program is a preschool program that's funded by an Illinois state grant for children 3 to 5 years old who are not eligible for kindergarten and who meet program criteria. It's funded at $632,506 for school year 24. The first priority in awarding grants must be given to applicants that propose to serve children who have been identified as at risk of academic failure. And then the second priority in awarding grants must be given to applicants proposing to serve primarily children whose family's income is less than 4 times the poverty guidelines. At-risk children are those who, because of their home and community environment, are subject to language, cultural, economic, and like disadvantages. This program is not required, but we must provide it or return the grant money that we receive. Tuition-based program eligibility. So our tuition-based programming is for children who are typically developing. They do not have disabilities and do not qualify for our at-risk programs. There's no state or federal funding for that programming, and we are not required to provide that programming.
All right, historical trends. I get to share with you the data. So previous to building the Early Learning Center, we did have preschool programs in a multitude of elementary buildings in District 59. This particular data is enrollment data from the time that we opened the Early Learning Center. So starting in school year 2015-16. And what you will see is what our enrollment looks like at the beginning of each school year and what our enrollment looks like at the end of each school year. And the reason why we felt like this data was important to share with you is to help demonstrate how our enrollment changes throughout the course of the school year, which is unique to any other building in the district. And the primary reason for that is as children turn 3 and become eligible for our program, they are able to begin and enter our program regardless of what time of school year it happens to be. Okay, so it is typical and expected that we will start our enrollment lower in August and September. And as we grow throughout the course of the school year, we end at a much higher enrollment level. This particular school year, if you will look at the chart, the far right bars of September of 23, and we have the enrollment as of today, as of right before break in December of 23, you will see that our enrollment right now at 365 students is almost where we ended the school year last school year. So our enrollment this school year has grown substantially, and we're very excited that we are capturing additional students in our district to enroll in our program.
Mhm.
And
It
even
did.
today, it did
Yeah.
increase as of today, yes. All right, so this is a breakdown just so that you can see by the type of programs that the students are enrolled in, the number of students that we have in each of those categories. And what we did was we went back over the last several years post-COVID, because as with every school district across the United States, our enrollment did plummet during COVID. So we have gone from 276 students at the end of the school year 21 to, as of right now, like I said, we have a total enrollment of students of 365. And then we have it broken down by special education, at risk, which is that preschool for all grant-based program, and our tuition.
Could we pause for a second?
Sure.
Michelle, would you mind sharing just a little bit why we've seen such a significant increase in our tuition-based students?
I'm happy to.
I know that question's going to get asked, and
Yes.
it's an exciting piece that I'd like to
It is
share.
a very exciting piece. So we were able to increase the number of students participating in our tuition-based program because we instituted last year a sliding scale fee. And so now we have families who are able to participate. They can take advantage of either anywhere between $0 and full tuition cost for the year. And
What is the full tuition cost?
oh my gosh, 300, right?
300.
Yeah, sorry.
A month or for the whole?
No, a month.
A month,
Yeah.
okay.
Per month.
Mhm. And we spread it out so that families pay monthly. They can also choose to pay all at once when they want. But so we're very excited about that because we have previously heard from families that they can't afford to attend, but they don't qualify for our other programs. So we were losing those families. They were falling through the cracks and not coming in until kindergarten. So now we were able to increase those numbers, like I say, significantly. And we do hear from our families how much they appreciate that and what a difference that makes to them. I was actually talking to a family this morning, and she was just saying how much she appreciates it this year because when her other two daughters were younger, we didn't offer that sliding scale fee, so they could not participate. And she said what a difference she notices in her child who is with us this year, being able to participate. So I think that's really good news to share.
The other barrier that was removed, and it was really with the approval of SLT and the Board of Education, was the ability to offer transportation services to all of our students. So prior to last school year, only students who were eligible through our special education programming or through the Preschool for All programming were able to access transportation services. So we had families who might have been able to afford the full tuition, but weren't able to have the means of transportation to get their child to and from school on a daily basis. So those two major barriers, the sliding scale and the transportation, have been removed, and that has made a significant impact on our ability to enroll more students in our program.
If it's switched to full day, do we see the fees increasing from $300 to a more expensive fee?
So the switch to full day is a little bit part of the future discussion. The switch to full day would have significant impacts across programming. Yes, tuition would go up, but we would also, because of the grants that are involved, increase to full day. Likely, we would have to have criteria, but likely increase to full day for the special ed and at-risk populations before we increased for the tuition population. Because those are the populations identified as really needing the program, where the tuition-based students, it's great for the district to be able to offer that, but it's not required, and those are not the students who are really primarily targeted by early learning programs. So if we had the means to offer full day pre-K for all of our potential incoming kindergartners, then certainly the tuition would adjust. It's just unlikely that would be the first group that would come into the full day program.
So the switch to full day you see as maybe transitional.
Potentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Continuing with enrollment trends, we wanted to provide you with a little bit more information or data around that Preschool for All, the grant-based program. So again, just highlighting the enrollment of that particular program. The grant is written now to serve 180 students total between our early learning site and the new classroom that will be opening at Ridge Family Center for Learning. So you can see over the last several years approximately where our grant-based programming enrollment ended. There are years where we have not met that 150, and partially that's due to, again, families just not wanting to enroll their children for a number of reasons. We are still seeing an impact of families being concerned about enrolling their young children due to COVID factors and just some of the hesitancies related to that. So we're working really hard to have those conversations and encourage families to continue to consider us in enrolling and making them feel comfortable with that decision.
Okay, so recognitions and celebrations. So I get to have the good slide because this is all the good stuff. So the ELC has consistently been awarded the Gold Circle of Quality from the Illinois State Board of Education. And Gold Circle programs are those that meet or exceed quality benchmarks on learning environment, instructional quality, administrative standards, group size and ratios, qualifications, and professional development. So we've consistently received that Gold Circle of Quality for years and years.
At least since
Yeah.
2006.
Yeah, prior to us even moving to the ELC. So we're very proud of that. And our staff works very hard to maintain that Gold Circle of Quality. Some of our celebrations and the ways that we outreach to our families who don't necessarily participate in our school day programming, we offer play and learn classes. So those are free classes for children ages 0 to 5 who live within CCSD59 boundaries. They come with their parent or guardian. They participate in a little preschool experience. So they have circle time, they sing songs, they read stories, they do activities with their families. And our family facilitator, Marlene Orozco, also models for parents how to help their children learn and grow. So she models how to read books and share literature with children. She models how to engage your children using everyday items that you would have at home. So sorting socks, help cooking and measuring and different things like that. So that's one way that we expand learning to those who aren't students at the ELC. We also offer Family University. So over the last 2 and about a third years, we've served 124 families in 6 sessions, providing them with parent education, a preschool-like experience for 2 to 3-year-old children, and then we offer sibling care with homework help so that we're trying to remove as many barriers as possible to having families be able to participate. So they come at 5 o'clock, we serve them a warm meal, they eat with the teachers who participate in the program, and then we have some community building time where families get to know one another, they play together, then they go to classrooms, the parents participate in everything from yoga classes and how to teach your students and children to calm themselves and bond as a family, to emergency safety, to getting a library card. Last year, we were able to provide library cards to about 40 families in attendance right on site. So we were very happy with that. And then the siblings get to play and engage with each other, but then also do get that homework help. So we've really expanded that from, I think, the 8 families we had that very first year. So we're really excited about that as well. And then we also have wonderful community partnerships. So we partner with YWCA. They come in roughly once a month and serve families, providing them again with parent education, but also resources, activities with the children. They do car seat giveaways and fittings in cars. Kenneth Young, Mount Prospect Library, Police and Fire Departments, and their Community Connection Center, Elk Grove, Des Plaines, and Arlington Heights Libraries, Des Plaines Salvation Army, and then our local churches. So we have some really wonderful community partnerships that support us, and then we in turn support them. So sometimes YWCA uses our space, but then they support us with giveaways for our families and things like that. So those are some of the celebrations we wanted to share with you this evening.
And before we move on, I just want to make sure that people have a clear understanding about how really extraordinary some of the things on here are. The fact that this program has been a Gold Circle of Quality program for 15 plus years is quite extraordinary. The level of oversight, monitoring, quality that every staff member in this building has to maintain in order to receive that award every year is like nothing that happens in any of our other buildings. It is really quite quite special that you guys have that. And then Family University is really a cutting edge thing that Michelle and Melissa really envisioned a few years ago, and we were able to get started with district support, but has really brought in those families who are not even yet involved in the district. And so it is that very early welcome to families who need extra support. So this is just one slide, but this really does represent some of the extraordinary work that's going on in this building.
Thanks. All right. Requirements. Oh, so we get to go back to some of the less exciting slides.
Sorry.
Not sure how that happened. So program requirements. The overarching piece for you to understand is that whatever we do, we must ensure that the curricula that we're utilizing is aligned with the Illinois Early Learning and Development Standards. So just as elementary and junior high and high school have learning standards, so does early learning. If we have students who have identified disabilities, their goals must be aligned to those early learning standards. So everything that we do has to be connected back to what those state standards require. Our current curriculum is the creative curriculum. It is a framework. It is research-based for children. Actually, it goes from birth until third grade, but for our students, it's for students ages 3 to 5. It's really a way for students to be able to learn how to apply skills across all developmental domains. Our staff, our teachers specifically plan based upon a selected topic, and they intentionally plan their classroom and everything that's going on, whether it's the materials that are being used, because at early childhood in particular, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of toys. There's a lot of consumables. And that's because children at this age learn through interacting and playing. So the teachers are intentionally planning to make sure that they are supporting the learning across all developmental domains. In addition to that, this school year we are piloting Scholastic Pre-K on My Way. We've had a lot of conversations with our staff over the last several years about really needing to find a way to supplement the creative curriculum with providing some targeted explicit instruction, particularly in the areas of early literacy and early math skills. One of the reasons why we feel that's critical is that we want to ensure that we're preparing our students as much as possible for their entry into kindergarten. But we also know that there are times when our students are coming to us without skills that perhaps in the past they had previously come to us with. So we can no longer work on the assumption that they're going to come in with a certain foundational set of skills. So we want to make sure that we are being very intentional in our planning and our instruction and ensure that our students have those opportunities to learn the vocabulary, the literacy skills, the early math skills, and have that be a supplemental component to that creative curriculum. So it's still developmentally appropriate, but we're making sure that we're not leaving any gaps along the way. We also use a number of other curricular resources to meet our students' needs. One of the largest areas would be that social emotional learning area. As you may know, that is a huge component of what we do at the Early Learning Center, in that every student who walks through our door at age 3, 4, or 5, we're working on teaching them emotions, how to deal with those different emotions, how to identify those different emotions. And so we do have a building-wide curriculum. We use conscious discipline, which is a research-based curricular social emotional curriculum. We also use zones of regulation, which is a method to help students visually identify where their bodies are with their emotions. And that is actually a curriculum that's utilized at the elementary level. So we're not only teaching them, but we're also using them a skill and strategy that will continue as they move into the elementary buildings.
Can I ask a question about
Sure.
the second curricular resource you all are looking into? It said it's available in English and Spanish. What percentage of, or what number of the kids are English learners?
A
A
yeah,
lot.
the vast majority.
Okay, that's
so,
great.
so that's a huge one of the at-risk factors. So when we talk about the Preschool for All grant, one of the, and we talked about that, the at-risk checklist and things that families screen in to see if they qualify for at-risk programming. Not having English spoken in your home is one of the really weighted factors.
If I'm 3 and I'm entering the ELC, what measures are the staff taking to cater to me as an English learner?
So hold on one second. Let's go to the
Yeah.
certification pieces, and then we'll talk to you about
specifically
exactly what our
answer that,
teachers have.
So there are specific requirements that staff must meet in order to even be eligible to teach an early childhood classroom. To be eligible to teach a preschool for all classroom, they have to be certified in early childhood education. They also, if they're going to be teaching a blended classroom, which is all of our preschool for all classrooms are, they must also hold their special education endorsement. And that allows that classroom teacher to serve in a general education early childhood role and a special education early childhood role. In addition, because we have so many students who come from homes where English is not the first language, they may be bilingual, they may be trilingual, we require our staff to also hold their English as a second language endorsement, or if they are teaching a classroom for our particular building, it's Spanish, because we meet the threshold where that requirement comes into play where we must offer bilingual services. They also then have to hold their endorsement in bilingual education in that specific language. For special education, they have to have that special education endorsement. Again, if they're teaching a blended classroom, they also have to have the overall early childhood endorsement. So our teachers are required to hold a significant number of endorsements just to be able to teach a classroom. For the PFA classrooms, the ratio, so how many students per adult, we can have one adult for every 10 children with a maximum of 20 students being served, but that is only if we do not have any students with a disability in those classrooms. As soon as we have a student who has an IEP, an individualized education plan, that ratio shifts down and we cap at 15 then, 15 students. The special education ratio is dependent on the specific needs of the students and the nature of that programming. It does tend to be smaller if it's only students who are receiving special education services in those classrooms. Okay. All right. As Elizabeth alluded to a few minutes ago, there are a number of monitoring or audits that take place in order to ensure that we're in compliance with state and federal regulations. For the grant, typically every 3 to 4 years, we are monitored. We have staff who come, the last several years, it's been through National Louis University. They have staff who are trained across the state who come in, and they complete 2 components of a monitor. The first component is the compliance component, where they're checking files to make sure that we have all of the requirements for each student files. They're making sure that we serve a snack that meets the requirements that are outlined in the grant. They're making sure that we have at least 60 minutes of center time where the students are rotating through those centers and have that independent playtime. There are very specific criteria that we must meet as part of the compliance component. The second component to that monitoring piece is the environmental component. So they literally have the monitors go into our classrooms and they spend an entire morning or an entire afternoon in each of those classrooms, and they are observing, and they have specific criteria that they are looking to see if we have met. So how is the classroom set up? Do we have lines eye view of a child and it's not being blocked by some sort of piece of furniture? Do we have individual cubbies for every student who are in those classrooms? What does the snack look like? Do we have a specific amount of books and a variety of books that represent different languages? Are we representing different cultures? So again, it's very detailed and very specific. They complete that monitoring component. We receive the feedback on that, and then we are required annually to submit a quality improvement plan. So there's always something for us to improve on, right? We're always looking at how do we make it better. We specifically have to have a plan in place that we submit annually for them to review to make sure that we are addressing any identified areas of needs. For special education, the auditing typically will take place through periodic grant reporting, where I have to submit a report to the state of Illinois to identify how many students have been identified with disabilities. And then there are, through the district report card, the special education profile indicators. So there's a number of different indicators for early childhood specifically, and then we are also part of the overall district special education indicators as well. Okay. All right. More exciting information for assessment. So Preschool for All, the students who are enrolled in that program are required to have a portfolio. And the portfolio, again, there are very specific components that are required to be within each student portfolio, but the idea is that we are showing that those students are making progress across developmental areas during the time in their program. I will not read to you all of the different areas that we have to collect data on, but they are listed there for your reference. For special education, we are reporting individually on students on their IEP, their individualized education plan goals every trimester. So families receive specific student progress towards their individual goals. And then annually, we also have an annual review. Again, the State Performance Plan Indicator 7 is part of our district report card, and that specifically is looking to ensure that we are identifying how children across our program who have identified disabilities are performing in 3 different areas: positive social emotional skills, acquisition and use of knowledge and skills, and the use of appropriate behaviors to meet their needs. And there is a scale. It's essentially a Likert type scale that staff have to identify where is the child performing, and we have to have data. We don't just randomly choose a number. We have to have data to support where that child is performing in each of those areas.
All right, so let's talk about some of the planning for the future pieces. So if you want to go to the next one.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Thank you. All right, so the additional funds that we received from the state from the Preschool for All grant, you saw earlier 600 and now I'm blanking on the 650 some odd.
$637.
So some of that was additional grant money that we just received in November. And we received that money because District 59 is considered a preschool desert, identified by the state as not being able to meet the needs of having 80% of the 3 and 4-year-old children from low-income families be able to have seats. So this is the data that the state uses in order to determine that prior to us receiving the additional funds, we had 34.3% of the need met. And that could be us. It could also be other early childhood settings that are not located at public schools, who also might receive some kind of grant funds, whether it is early childhood block grant or Head Start There are some other low-income programs who might get funds, but the state believes that we need 287 slots in order to reach that 80% threshold. Our additional funds fund up to 30 seats. So if we look at that on the next slide from the additional PFA money, it was $117,000, and that is renewable for next year. That is to serve the 30 students. So if you remember, Melissa said in blended classrooms, we have one teacher, one assistant to our 15 students, 30 students, half of them in the morning, half of them in the afternoon. So that this year and presumably next year will be one classroom in those 2 sessions at Ridge. And all of the students in that program qualify as at risk because it is a preschool for all program. So there will be no tuition students, at least in this classroom this year. All right.
So before you move on, can you go back? The 287 is in addition to existing programs.
280, thank you. 280, if we go back one more.
Yeah, go back one.
That is in addition to the 150 slots that we had prior to the awarding of the additional 30.
So 30 counts towards that, but
30
that's what
counts
they
towards
say.
that. So they say we still need 150 or 257.
Okay.
Mhm.
So this goes back to the conversation we were having, I think, last month when I think, Sarah, you posed the questions like, what is our target? How many students would we ideally serve? This is one of the indicators that we could look at as a target. I think we obviously want to look at who are those other students that maybe have other barriers to why they are not being serviced with us, especially students who have some disabilities or students who are maybe, slipping through other cracks because of tuition or transportation. But this at least lends a little bit of that criteria as to what the state is using to identify us as a desert.
And to be clear, these 287 slots do not mean we need 287 slots to meet the needs of all of our children. This is 287 slots to meet the needs of our children who would qualify for an at-risk program. So all of the tuition folks, all of those numbers that you saw had been raised, those are not these slots. So this is really a specific targeted population that the state says that we need this many more slots for.
So to get out of the preschool desert criteria, you would need 257 additional students who qualify as at risk, correct?
Well, we would need seats for 257 additional students, and we would need to find the students.
Okay.
And we would need to
I guess
convince
I'm
their
asking-
families that they should attend.
So that's about 19 additional classrooms, correct? If you're saying 15 probably in a classroom.
So 19 additional classrooms, but it's morning and afternoon, so really 10.
Right, but you're going toward a goal of all day.
No, I didn't say that.
Okay.
I'm saying that could be a goal.
Okay, so if a goal is all day, then let's shoot for the moon, right?
If a
The
goal is all day,
Yeah.
then you're looking at 19 additional classrooms,
Okay.
plus doubling the number of existing classrooms.
Okay. So, and do you know how many classrooms you currently have at the ELC?
We're using 17
17.
as class.
So basically, 34 plus 19 is what you're looking for here.
And I'm not saying we're looking for that.
I don't want. I'm not holding your feet to the fire. I'm saying ideally, what we're hoping for is 34 plus 19. Yes.
I'm not saying at this point that
Okay.
that's what we're hoping for.
I'm just trying to get to logistically, what would we need to do to create this scenario?
So according to the state of Illinois, a high quality preschool program is a half day program. I mean, we want to be really clear about that. We're doing high quality programming, and the state of Illinois considers a half day to be high quality programming. 2.5 hours, yes. 2.5 hours as a high quality program. There are some opportunities to increase to full day, but that's not going to be appropriate for a lot of kids. And there are a lot of other logistical pieces that go in there too. But I don't want anyone to think that because we don't currently have, we're aiming for that because it's so much better than what we have. High quality preschool programming is defined as the 2.5 hours every day.
Is there a reason? I would imagine one of the reasons that a lot of parents don't enroll their kids is because it is only half day. So-
that is one of the barriers.
Right.
That
Mhm.
is definitely one of the barriers. We hear that.
And then a slide ahead for helping 30 kids with like 117,000. Are we just making do with that 117,000, or is it about $4,000 a student is the cost for us to operate?
That is absolutely not the cost for us. So I actually wrote this expansion for $150,000. And even that was less than what it would actually cost. They gave us 117 because basically they say you have X amount of dollars for each student. So what you're saying about $4,000 for each student. This will cover a teacher and an assistant. It isn't really covering classroom materials and supplies too much. We bought some furniture with it. It's not really covering transportation. It's not really covering any administrative oversight or any special or related services. So it doesn't cover the bulk of what our program costs.
What, could you give me a rough number of what it would cost per student?
Well, if we look overall per student, and again, some of our students have very intensive needs. This is an at-risk only program. So including all of our students, we're really looking at closer to like the $30,000 to $40,000 range
Per student?
per student.
Our school report card,
Hmm.
its financial data has us at $40,000 for the ELC
Hmm.
for last year.
So if we wanted to move out of being called a preschool desert, are we expecting grants to increase every time we increase number of slots? I mean, I think that's impossible expectation, right?
It is a possible expectation, but our grant money will not increase to cover all of our costs. So that's what I'm saying here is that we need to be very clear about the fact that that PFA dollars is going to cover a minimal amount, and in truth, the IDEA dollars, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, that covers the special ed pieces, that's an even more minute piece. I mean, to have that be only 55,000 like covers almost nothing, because we have some kids who have some very intensive needs. So the district does foot the bill for the majority of that programming.
So do you think, are we doing a good job at capturing the most needy kids? So if we do expand and add more kids, that cost will go down because the kids that we're adding aren't requiring as much resources?
I think so because the special ed programming is the programming that's required by the state and federal government, federal laws, those are the most intensive and needy students. They require the most related services. They require more individualized programming, sometimes the intensity of summer programming. Certainly our at-risk students have lower staffing needs to support some of those things. So it did, add 200 more at-risk students. That would reduce the cost overall. I do think that the program does a pretty good job of capturing those neediest students. We have kids who pop up here and there in kindergarten every year, but the bulk of them come through the Early Learning Center first.
Let me ask a very general question. When we talk about like full day, and I think a lot of times parents are thinking daycare, and this is not what we're selling here. Is not selling, but that's not what we're providing here. Is not daycare, right? So how do we what are those? What's different in the ELC versus like our kindergarten? I know we have like the staff supports, and we have like great psychologists in the building, and what else do we have inside the ELC to kind of like what makes it a little different from what we see in our K through 5 buildings?
So can I talk a little bit about the expansion piece first? So part of so you want to go to the next slide. So this is some of these future possibilities pieces now that we're talking about. And thinking about full day, there is an option in the Preschool for All grant to write for some full day slots. Now, so you asked about costs reducing over time. With the full day slots come many other requirements, like outside healthcare providers, that we would hire, not
Mhm.
partnerships that are, nice,
Mhm.
volunteer kinds of things, healthcare providers, wraparound services for families, lots more food services. Sorry?
Full meals.
Yeah,
Mhm.
full meals. And they would still have to really, those kinds of requirements are quite different at the 3 to 5 age group than they are at elementary. So even beyond the intensity of some of the services, the requirements would shift and would create additional expense, again, beyond what the grants would fund. And not to say that we can't do it, we just need to be aware that there are, and I have here, additional monitoring and compliance
Mhm.
requirements. The physical space pieces, so you listen to Melissa talk about the monitoring visits, so the ECHRs, the environmental considerations, those that we will have to make substantial physical modifications to some of our buildings. Now, Ridge, where we are now, Michelle used to be the principal at Ridge.
Mhm.
Ridge, that back corridor was designed to house early childhood programming. So less, no physical plant modifications necessary there. But I've had things on that environmental scale, like our mats in our gym were a 1/4 inch too
Sure.
not thick enough. I mean, the level of minutia that they're looking at for monitoring would really increase significantly in whatever other site we were in. So there's a lot of logistics involved in planning for a full day or an expansion. Doesn't mean it can't be done. There just needs to be much more planning. It wouldn't be something that we'd go like this program at Ridge that we just found out in November. We got the money and now we're starting it in a couple of weeks. That would not be possible with a full day
Sure.
kind of model. There would be much more that needed to go into making sure that was properly implemented.
Do we have any?
Oh, microphone.
Turn it off. I'm sure we don't. I know we don't have it right now, but I'd be curious to see kids who go through like the early childhood program, what their scores are like early on in the iReady testing. And then also, I know like some of our best performers in the iReady tests are people who were former language learners, right?
Mhm.
And so how many of those former language learners go through these early programs and end up performing better early on?
Yeah, do we track that at all?
So I don't know that we do track that, but I do want to give a caveat to that, which the majority of kids in this program are either at risk or have disabilities.
Sure.
So to say that they will be necessarily outperforming everyone else, might be a little more difficult. It's one of those things that it's hard to prove the benefits of preventative programming, and that's kind of what we run into with early childhood.
We talked about having at least an indicator within our data system so that we can look at cohort data moving forward by program, because I think that you can at least look at peer group to get some type of comparative data looking forward. So that's definitely something that we just recently talked about.
Let me ask. Well, first of all, thank you all three for coming tonight with the weather. Should have said that from the start. But I'm a big proponent of early childhood education. The earlier, the better. So how do we get more families aware of the ELC and the services that we provide? Because like, how does a parent find out about it?
So why don't you talk about it?
We participate in a number of preschool open houses. So Arlington Heights, Elk Grove Village, Des Plaines, Mount Prospect, the libraries hold preschool fairs where all the libraries in the area, we set up our table, our family facilitator, Marlene is there. We have information, we get people's contact information, and we follow up that way. So that's one of the outreach pieces we do. We also are connected with a lot of the community churches and all of the suburbs serve. So they have our flyers. They refer people to us. Our partnership with YWCA They refer families to us as well, but that's something that we talk about is how can we get the word out
Mhm.
about what we do to more families.
Our own staff will often reach out to us and refer the younger siblings of children who are enrolled in the program. We also have a strong connection, Child and Family Connections, which is the Birth to 3 state-based program that transitions students from their program into our program. We have a great working relationship where we'll refer children to them, they refer families to us. I think those are probably some of the more significant connections that we have specifically related to finding those students who have identified or are need to be identified as having a disability.
Like for instance, go ahead.
One other thing,
Mhm.
our community outreach specialists at our elementary buildings, the families that they work with, they also refer. So they typically tend to work with our higher needs families at the elementary level. So that has been able to bring in some other context too.
And then the only other piece I would say is that word of mouth is powerful.
Sure.
We often have families referring friends and other families in their neighborhood. Usually our families who are coming to us from other countries, they get connected. They oftentimes will have communities that will say, okay, this is where you need to go for this service. This is where you need to go for that service. You need to contact this person to be able to access schooling. So word of mouth and the connection among families is extremely powerful as well.
Is this program, are we going to be able to staff this program is my other question. Because it seems like we've had significant staff challenges as of late, correct? So you're going to need a lot of additional staff and a lot of additionally highly qualified staff with all licensures they need to attain. So can this be staffed for 287 more kids?
Yeah, and I don't want to get lost on our target being the 287.
Okay.
Like I want to say that what our most important goal, and team, tell me if you agree, is to find children who need this program, who need to be connected with District 59 at an earlier age, right? Because we're setting them up for success. So I think what we've done and the steps that we've taken are showing gradually that we are growing at a pace that we're able to sustain, which I think is the top priority. I think they've done even when we got this grant funds and we sat down with Michelle and with Elizabeth, and can we do this? Not accept these funds. And we were able to hire, and it was all contingent upon being able to hire. So I think growing at a pace where we can identify needs when we remove barriers. I think right now, one of the things that we haven't talked about is proximity. We tend to have more students at our ELC who live closer to the ELC. We saw that during the equity audit. We saw that through our transportation study. So creating additional opportunities that are in close proximation to where our students and the needs are, I think is probably another target area that we want to start to look at. And I think that's why we want to go slow to go fast, do it the right way. I think we have an outstanding model in place that we have a wealth of knowledge and expertise in. So I think however our future looks, it's do we have the support as this being a priority without creating some illusion that it's 100% of people. So I think that's what's challenging about answering. There is not we want 100% of 3 and 4 year olds in District 59. I don't think that's our goal.
So
but we want to grow from where we are based on the needs that we are seeing. And we are seeing in kindergarten expand needs, which tells us we need to continue to grow.
So following up on that, what is our aspiration to the growth? Are we talking about adding additional 30 comes September, or a higher scale? What are we thinking?
So you're like, what's the growth rate?
Growth rate, yep.
That we can sustain or look forward to.
So we have, so this classroom next week will start with, or a couple of weeks, we'll start with 7 additional kids initially. We will build that up to the 30 by the end of the year. That funding is renewable for another year. And so we anticipate keeping those 30 and really assessing the year do we have more kids that actually need those spaces? Is 30 kind of where we're capped right now? Were we not even able to hit that 30? And then we would come back and go through the staffing allocation process and potentially ask for additional staff allocation if we had a lot of kids signed up screening appointments. These guys do a great job of scheduling out everybody who needs to be screened over the summer, before the spring comes, or as the spring unfolds. And so we would have a good idea before the end of the school year whether or not we need additional seats. So I think at this point it's a monitor what's happening and ask for more if we need it. We will for sure try to keep these 30 seats, and then build from there. Potentially another classroom next year, potentially waiting until probably in February-ish, depending on when ISB issues their stuff. So I'm talking now February 25. We would write for the same 650,000, which is our 180 seats, and potentially expand and ask for additional seats. Typically for the last number of years, they've renewed at the same amount.
Yes.
And only at certain times have you been able to write for more. At this point, I would anticipate, based on what they've said so far, that we would be able to write for more in the spring of 25. So in terms of grant funding, that next have the opportunity to capture more funds. If we, as a district, again, decided that next year we had enough kids and were able to staff and build those seats, then we would certainly look at it for next fall. But we are looking at gradual expansion because it is going to impact, social workers, psych, speech paths, OTs and PTs, building administration. The impacts are not just, do we have the classrooms and the teacher and the assistant? It's much beyond that.
I guess my question's about what are our ultimate goals that, how fast is this expansion going to happen is because of this last slide, which is, I see Ridge and I see the schools throughout the district as very short-term solutions, right? They work for now, but I don't want to be giving 3, 4, and 5-year-olds whiplash in terms of where they're going to be every year, right?
Well, they change pretty frequently anyway. I mean, some of them come only for 1 year and then they go somewhere else anyway.
Okay.
I'll just say, so I started in this position in 2005. And at that time, we had preschool satellite classrooms throughout the district. And from year to year, what buildings we were in, how many buildings we were in did vary. Our kids, for all of their needs, they are very resilient. And so I think as long as there are thoughtful conversations, there is thoughtful planning, what's done well, the kids will do well. I think it tends to be more adult pieces that tend to become the conversations, our worries. The kids do fine. We ensure we take care of the students and make sure that they are feeling safe and they're well educated. Where that happens, I think it's some of those logistical pieces that we have to really be thoughtful about to make sure that we're equally providing the same quality of programming regardless of where a child happens to attend.
Right. And I just wanted to make it clear that if we're looking for, this is my opinion, if we're looking for a smart and equitable solution to this, we have a big, beautiful updated building on the north side. It would seem to me that we would also want a big, beautiful updated building on the south side, which to me is this building. So I just don't want us to get really caught up in putting kids here, 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 and here, and here if the ultimate solution is putting them here. So that's just something to think about moving forward.
I think with that, and I think it's really important that the board have this conversation because that statement's been put out there. I think no matter where we put anything, we're looking at where existing space is that is available. there is no existing space here available. But so that would mean reallocation or relocation of the services that are provided here, which I have no issue with. But if the board says, hey, we want to evaluate what would it take to make this building a Southside ELC, then
I
we
mean,
would
the
need to know that
environmental
now.
modifications would be extraordinary. So you guys were involved in building a new early childhood center. I've been involved in building early childhood buildings. To convert a non-school building into an early childhood building would be,
A huge undertaking.
yeah, again, doesn't mean it can't be done. But it wouldn't, if you're going to convert an existing building, it would be a good idea to, start with one that was designed already to, which is why we're in that Wing and Ridge. That was designed for early childhood already. I think it would also, at this point, based on what the state of Illinois is doing with early childhood programming, not necessarily recommendable to dump a whole bunch of money into a facility, because the state is recommending different service delivery models as we move forward. And so it may not all, the state may not be recommending all site-based early childhood programming. That is, there's a lot of conversation in focus groups and work groups about that right now. But I think that it would be advisable for the district to wait until the ISB and their work group makes solid recommendations about how districts should move forward. And then look at facility pieces relative to what the programming is. I mean, that's what you want to start with. That's what we started with when we chose those classrooms at Ridge. There are several empty classrooms in the district. You all know that. The Ridge ones were chosen because we knew what program we needed, we knew the requirements, and we knew that that existing space was already designed to meet those requirements. Whereas had we gone to another building, the existing space would not have already been designed to meet the requirements.
And I think the other important piece to remember is it's what's happening inside the building that is making the difference. There's no doubt we are fortunate to be in a beautiful building, but it's the people in that building that make the magic happen. They made the magic happen when they were out in all of the other schools before the ELC even existed. That's why we've had the gold quality seal for 15 years plus. So buildings are great. New buildings are wonderful. Again, I'm not saying we don't love our building. We do. But it's what's happening inside that building. It's the programming. It's the dedication and the talent of our staff. It's the hard work that goes into helping those students learn and grow. And that truly can be done in a variety of settings. Again, we're fortunate to have a great setting. That's great. But it's the curriculum, it's the assessments we use, it's the talented staff. That's what's helping the kids learn and grow.
And Michelle is very good at reminding us of that when we go when we took our entire leadership team to go spend, a morning over there. And I think sometimes it's easy to get hung up on the how everything looks and the exterior pieces of things, but we can do great things regardless of what a building looks like. I think right now we're also looking at building utilization and where do we have available space. That requires little to no renovation in order to accommodate students or whatever the need is. If there's another large space that could accommodate professional learning and all the things that happen in this building, I think you guys should be talking about that. But that's what this building was designed for. That building was designed for early learning. Our schools were designed to house children.
All right. I want once again to thank all three of you for coming out on this snow day.
Thank you so much.
I really want to just say thank you so much for all that you do for our youngest members of our community. We know that preschool is the biggest bang for our buck that we can get. It's one of those areas in educational research where I actually believe all the research points that direction, whereas other things may be more muddled. I really highly respect the research done on the impacts that preschool has on students, not just as students, but throughout their lives. The preschool has the potential to change families and their kids and so on. So as an investment in our community, it's one of the best things that we can do. And I look forward for incremental expansion or whatever it takes. 40,000 times 257 is a little bit, but I think the marginal cost is something much less than that. So that may be something to get out of this expansion.
And we appreciate the support both from the board and from SLT as well. Because working together, we have a really fantastic program that we're very proud of.
Thank you.
So real quick, I know there's a quick video, so let's end with that as you wrap up and make your way out. But if you ever get the chance, please go and visit the ALC if you have not already, because to see these programs in action is really what brings it all to life. And I think, Robert, to your point about what is different about it, it is different than daycare. It is different than an elementary setting. So here's just a little snippet to show it. Thank you.
And this is where the driver drives. Wow.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, we need to skip back to 5.01 for your requests, I believe.
The school district has responded to 7 FOIAs since the last report to the Board of Education. 1 was withdrawn and 4 are still in process.
Thank you. That moves us on to 6.0, the consent agenda.
We need a motion there. I'll make it.
Yeah.
I
So
move-
first, hold on first. Does anybody need anything pulled from the consent agenda? Then you can make it.
Nope.
No? Okay.
Okay. To approve the consent agenda, including section 6.01, approval of minutes of prior meetings, 6.02, disbursements resolution, 6.03, acceptance of financial reports, 6.04, acceptance of recommendations, human resources reports, 6.05, approval to destroy 18-month-old or older closed session recordings, section 6.06, approval to release library grant funds.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Lucas. Okay. Any discussion on it before we do our roll call? Seeing none, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Okay, Espino, I. Johnson,
Aye.
Mancia.
Aye.
Sager.
Aye.
Schumacher's absent. Chesney
Aye.
and Zach. Aye. Okay, motion passes.
All right. Motion passes. That moves us on to 7.01, approval of intergovernmental agreement with District 21 for the Director of Safety. Can you give some background on this and just explain?
Absolutely. So we had previously spoken about replacing our position that was at one time a combined position for overseeing kind of custodial management as well as our director of safety. We looked at separating those 2 positions out, and in such we started having conversations with our neighboring district, District 21, who is actually embarking in a similar role. And so we thought it would be a great innovative way to capitalize on our resources and enter into a partnership for this position. So this position will serve half time in District 59 and half time in District 21. The approval of this intergovernmental agreement allows district to be the hiring agent for this position, and this allows us to then utilize those services on a 50% basis. We are really excited about looking at a position that will help oversee all things safety, threat assessment, our SRO programming, our proactive endeavors that we've really put in place in terms of safety, and have someone come into this position who will really help make recommendations, work as liaisons and partners with our local law enforcement and emergency responders, and be an asset and resource to us, as well as to another district that we can learn from along the way. It'll be truly a partnership, and it's a 1-year agreement. So starting, I believe, in early February, and then for 1 year's time that we would then evaluate and determine if we would want to continue that or go out on our own.
So this is the approval for an intergovernmental agreement between us. Okay. So does somebody want to make the motion, or I can if we scroll?
I'll make the
down?
motion.
Okay.
Be it resolved that on the 9th day of January 2024, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education approves the intergovernmental agreement between School District 21 and Community Consolidated School District 59 as presented.
And I'll second. Any questions, discussion on it further? If not, let's have a roll call vote on that.
Okay, Johnson.
Aye.
Mencia.
Aye.
Sager.
Aye.
Schumacher's absent. Chesney.
Aye.
Sack. Aye. Let's see. Espino, aye. Motion passes.
The motion passes. All right. Moving on, section 8.0 discussion items.
All right, thank you very much. We had a little bit of a preview before winter break, but what I'd love to do this evening is this would be our typical board discussion for the calendar. So we'll go through, this might be the first time you see some of this information. It could be a review, requirements, historical information for 59, annual calendar approval process. I'll show you the holidays for the recommendation for next year, draft calendar, and then take board guidance on next steps. And of course, there'll be plenty of time for discussion as well. Calendar requirements, it is quite complex to put a school calendar together. This is not everything, but it's a bit of a summary. You'll see that there are requirements from the state. There has to be a minimum of 176 student days. You can have a maximum of 4 teacher institute days, and you have to build in 5 emergency days. So you have to hit a number of 176 and 185 for those requirements. The certified teacher contract has requirements as well. We have 2 start of year days. Those are 2 days with staff before students arrive, the 176 for students, 4 institute days, 2 conference days. Those are when students aren't here, 184 total staff attendance with 9 paid holidays and 5 paid emergency days. That gets to a number of 198. And the reason I want to show you these 2 items is if you add a student day, that adds a teacher attendance day and so on. And so you have to put that puzzle together with that in mind. The ESP calendar has some components as well. Some are contractual, some are past practice. They're here for 2 start of year days, every student day, every institute day, conferences for a total of 184. They have 12 paid holidays. These are our 10-month ESPs for typically a total of 196, but that number can change based on how many student days, whereas the certified number is fixed. With that, historically in District 59, the calendar has stayed pretty similar year to year. District 59 did approve 2 years in a row, 1920 and 2021, right before the pandemic. But the outside changes have made it very difficult for most districts to have a multi-year calendar. And that's not just pandemic related. If there's a change with the requirements or holidays or state days, that can cause a change in our calendar in which people have already made their plans around. Some districts nearby are starting to try it again, so we'll monitor that to see, because we have had prior interest that it would be nice to do this every couple years. In 2022-23 for that calendar, it was time to update the calendar based on the new certified contract, and also we had drifted far away from some of our neighboring districts in terms of just having like calendars. At that time, we formed a more formal committee. We had DEA reps on to align with our contract, and then the calendar consolidation was approved by annually. The process looks like we wait for those state requirements to see if there's any changes. State holidays as well. There was one year, which I'll show you. We look at District 214. We know our families have students in that district as well to stay aligned. Once those three things are out, we make a draft calendar. We align it to all of those items and any district needs we have. We gather input from DEA and leadership. I included the language from the contract below for you if you're curious. And then we have board discussion. We show a calendar and holidays. It's typically in our past been December or January. And then the board's action on that, typically the month after, whether that's January or February. Then we communicate and share the approved calendars with our learning community. We do that through our schools, but also on our website. There is one other calendar related item. You will you'll take action in April on the official last day once we get away from snow days and things of that nature. So we'll come back and do that in April. So the holidays for next year are the same as this year, with the exception of an additional holiday. I believe I mentioned to you, this happened once before in the last few years. That's the November 5th General Election Day. So we're being told that is only for the 2024 calendar year. So we will not be here. A benefit to that is if we are polling places, which likely we are, we don't have students here. You'll see later in the calendar that there's another election day in the spring. And like this year, we plan our Institute Day on that day just to prevent any overlap of that unusual day with an instruction day. So that is built in. So in terms of our K-8 school calendar, the draft, it's very much the same as this year. It's based on the 176 student attendance days. Grades 1 through 8, first through 8, they start on August 15th, and kindergarten starts the day after, which is a Friday on the 16th. We continue to align to 214 with holidays and neighboring districts. Holidays breaks, and we have some overlapping institute days as well. We're starting to see some collaborative opportunities there. The general election holiday I mentioned, and that institute day is planned for the general election, which is on April 1st. The last day of school, if we don't use any emergency days on this calendar, would be June 2nd. You may recall the last time we were here, we discussed putting out a survey to the community. We did pause that because we weren't able to finalize some questions that we were going to send out. So this calendar, this draft calendar, is just based on everything I showed you in the previous slide. And with that, guidance, questions, how can I support the board?
Okay,
Are
go
we-
ahead, folks.
Are we discussing as a board the survey questions, or is that what?
Well, I would rephrase it as, do we as a board need more information?
Need more information?
That would be the question. Yeah. So I don't know what direction to go with this. So do we as a board feel like we need more information? Do we need a survey piece of information?
Sorry.
There you go. No problem. Go ahead.
I would say so, especially since we're thinking about Ridge, and we have seen the community feedback received from Ridge after we changed the calendar last year, or the previous school board did. I think that gave us an indication that we should be taking that piece of information into the account. I mean, I'm curious how it looks across the population of Rich, not just 5, 10 parents, although I think there was a lot more, right? So I think it would help us make an informed decision. At the very least, we would decrease the amount of back and forth on opinions, what we think is best for the parents.
Anybody else? That's fine?
Agree.
Okay.
I agree. I think that would be helpful just so I think Lucas brought up like a perfect point, not just the people that we hear from regularly, but knowing truly what the community thinks.
So rather than a broad survey to the entire district, this would just be single question to the Ridge parents.
Yeah, I don't think, like personally, I don't think there's much to question about the general calendar.
I think that was my concern with the survey being sent out is I don't believe the 90% of people who have always been on the traditional calendar knew what the question was asking. If you say, what's a balanced calendar? 90% of people would have no idea.
I mean, if we were
Yeah.
considering at one point moving everyone to a balanced calendar, if we're going to come in, if there's going to be a research and appetite to say, oh, everyone should go to balanced calendar, then it would make sense.
Right, but I don't get a sense that there's that.
I don't think so. I don't think so either.
Okay, I
we are
just
in
want
alignment
to
on that one.
clarify. I
Yeah.
want to narrow the scope of what we're discussing
Yes,
a little bit.
we're in
Okay.
agreement.
Okay, so we're in agreement on that. So the question then is, do we want to, as a board, request survey information on Ridge? Yes. Okay, what's the sense, other board members?
I mean, it's one piece of information. It's, as long as the question is worded properly, it's one factor that we can take into our whole analysis on the situation. I voted against a balanced calendar at Ridge last time. I don't know if I'll change my vote this time, but it's a factor to consider.
Well, yeah, I didn't actually even think about that until Lucas brought it up. But yeah, I mean, we did change their calendar, so I think we should take their input and their, how they feel about it right now. So like, who's gonna create that question?
Right. So that's well, I want to be clear that I don't think it's our job to workshop that question. I think it's our job to narrow what's the information we need, right? I don't want us to get into specific wording because then it's a negotiation between I think this word should go here and you think this word should go there. I don't want it to be that. So I think if we could get a single survey piece of information sent out, simplified from the survey we were sent before. I personally don't have any preference for what that question looks like. I know.
Well, I think now that they don't have a full year, but I guess they have we've gone through a majority of the breaks in the year, like the big.
Right.
So did you like the previous better, or do you like how this year's going better?
Yes, and we have students who started this year on that calendar, and I literally have no idea where that question would wind up.
And I think it's important. This is just for their feedback on it. It's not, if 90% of people say they like the old calendar, doesn't necessarily mean we will go with the
right. It's not. This is not a binding question. It's just information for the board to
Would you like the board to consider evaluating a balanced calendar at Ridge?
I think that's just too complicated. I just think as simple as we can make it for the parents. Like, would you like to return to a balanced calendar, or would you prefer a traditional calendar?
Yeah.
Something like that.
I think that's
Just simplistic, right? Very simple.
So the question that was originally drafted said, how interested would you be in Ridge returning to a balanced calendar for the 2024-25 school year? And it was a 4-point scale, not important, up to very important.
See, I even think I'm sorry if I'm overstepping. I think that's even a little too complex. If we're not considering any type of hybrid model, there's no point, in my opinion, in getting a gauge. To me, this is a yes or no question. We either have the calendar or we don't have the calendar.
And this is where I disagreed with that comment. I like Likert scales. You would basically, if it's a 1 or a 2, it's a no. If it's a 3 or 4, it's a yes, but there's some qualification to it, sort of thing.
But I guess that's my question is like, what difference does that make for us as a board in terms of making our decision whether people wanted a 3 or a 4, or they don't want it a 1 or
Well,
you know what I mean?
And ultimately,
Yeah.
it's our job to interpret
Yeah.
what that means.
And a good example, I remember, might have been during the equity journey when we were seeing polls of the staff, and you would kind of see like the bell curve of, and sometimes it made the analysis like, well, it's kind of hard to decipher what the actual answer is because a lot of people were indifferent, or it doesn't matter, or it's in the middle, or they're lukewarm on the question, versus kind of the binary choice of yes, no. So I think I don't know. In my opinion, I think that would help the 1, 2, 3, 4. You know.
It's a binary solution, though. We're asking a binary question for a binary solution, right? Because you can't kind of have a balanced calendar. You either have a balanced calendar or you don't have a balanced calendar.
Right.
So which calendar would you prefer? Balanced? Traditional?
I just think we should make it as simplistic as possible.
Yeah.
It's going to give us a clear picture of what people want or don't want, and then it's up to the board to make a decision.
Sure.
I think that TR, if we switch to what you just said, which type of calendar do you prefer? Then it becomes binary. My level of interest absolutely could be on a scale because maybe this year I don't have a junior high kid and I'm very interested in being on a balance. But next year, maybe now I have one at the junior high and it's going to be less important to me. But if we said, which calendar do you prefer for your child's enrollment at Ridge, balanced or traditional, then I agree. That is creating a very binary choice. You're choosing traditional or you're choosing balanced. We did have a second question. And so seeking your guidance, if this is keep or don't bother, we wanted to know, would changing the calendar impact your enrollment at Ridge? So let's say the board got the feedback and then made their decision and they said, hey, you know what? We heard the feedback, but we want to keep it traditional. Now we have at least data to say this would determine whether or not someone would stay. Or could you argue that their statement about balanced or traditional is sufficient to give you what you need to make your decision on the calendar?
No, in my opinion, I think we just focus on the one question. Because that's the only question that we're asking. And whether or not traditional or balanced calendar, full stop. That's just my 2 cents.
I agree. It also eliminates any bias introduced by other questions.
Mhm.
And that was my concern in the survey, having the leading questions or the bandwagon effect questions. That's a bias that sometimes being introduced. I know there's a different debates on it, but I see.
That's not technically what the bandwagon effect is.
I just, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've created some of those back in old days.
Now, originally we had looked at doing one for staff and one for families. Would you like us to put the same question out to both the staff and to the
It's just one question.
families?
That's fine with me.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's reasonable.
All right. Now I will, just for the sake of clarity, we did have a question about the starting time, and it was really based on feedback that I have heard from staff. Originally, the hours were different than any of the other elementary schools, which Ridge is an elementary school. So the hours that I understand historically were established to accommodate busing across the district. So some people, staff said, well, we didn't think they could be changed because it's dependent on the busing piece. And we have reviewed it and we would be able to accommodate that if that was a change that the board would be interested in. We also did have something new that popped up this year that I hadn't received feedback on in the last couple of years, was some families who were requesting to withdraw from Ridge because of the earlier start time for their younger students. So that came to top of mind. I heard it from staff. If that is not a question that we are interested in entertaining at this time, it's totally fine.
I think we should take it step by step. My
That-
opinion
that-
is we should take it step by step.
That
So-
one I don't know because that's not a calendar question,
that
right?
was
This
my
is
other
specifically,
question.
we have to vote on the calendar, right?
Right.
So I'm sort of the opinion of that might be a good question to ask once we settle this sort of thing, right? Where we should just focus on single question calendar sort of thing.
I would agree. I mean, it would be good to know. Actually, it would be very good to know, but let's keep it separate.
So I think I
And traditionally, that is a separate item that the board does approve on an annual basis to approve start and end times for schools.
Yeah, let's just keep it.
Okay, so we have direction, one survey question for both staff and for families, and making it an either or, traditional or balanced. And we'll keep the definition, because there are some families new to Ridge who may not have experienced it and may have just need that explanation. Okay, that is very helpful.
May I ask for guidance on one more item, and that's just your anticipated timeline. So we'll be going into our February board meeting. Families will start wanting the calendar. Would you like to move forward with the other calendar for action after we share with the DEA in February? Or are we waiting until, I heard step by step, the incremental will push us kindergarten registration, all of the other dependent pieces?
that was going to be my question. Can we split the question and approve the traditional calendar for everybody else? I don't actually know the answer.
So typically we approve
a calendar, and then we would
so we could do that and then come secondarily in to modify to a balanced calendar if that were the proposed.
But how much time do we need here? I mean, it's
Yeah,
publish the survey,
I agree. One
give it-
question.
the survey should be able to be sent to the board. So I
mean, just anticipating follow-up board discussion from
Right.
whatever the survey data is.
but
Yeah, I
but
mean, I think it's going to be high interest. We have a smaller pool of people taking it. The question is our next meeting is January 22nd, which is a committee of the whole, which typically we do not have action items. We could have discussion then and approval in February of everything.
Yes, I think that's probably the best way to go about it. To me, the result of the survey isn't something I think it's probably part of like the final discussion before the vote sort of thing. So I think that timeline would work.
So would we get results of the survey then? Are we saying we're getting the results of the survey at the committee of the whole, or we're getting results of the survey in February?
So I think as soon as we can, it's basically ready to go. We just now cut out everything else and reword it. So we just maybe need a couple days to get it translated and all of that. Get that out, leave it open for probably a week, no more. And so then I think by the January, and I can even share it just in a weekly.
So we could get it in maybe the Friday report before the committee of the whole or something. That I don't want to stick you with a particular.
Let's make sure that it's open for a week and
Yeah,
and then it's open for
share
a
it,
week.
yeah.
We get it before our February board meeting when we vote on it. We have the results sometime prior to that.
I mean,
Well, I will shoot for having the results by the committee of the whole.
if possible, great.
Yeah.
If not, yep.
Could I jump in for a second? Just a quick semantics question. Is this every parent survey or is this a family survey? Just to clarify for the group, because I know when we work with, we've asked families questions. It's the family responds for their kids, not each parent. You could have 5 kids there. That's 5 survey questions. I'm just wondering.
One response per family would be, that was how we originally
The standard
drafted it, was
Got
to
it.
say we want one response per family. And because it is a more school centered, we could that was part of the process that we talked about, because obviously you could go in and skew data by just taking the survey any number of times. So we were going to, have some type of indicator that at least tied them to one family per response and give us the information. This is obviously not data that we would, it's opinion data. It's not feedback in terms of anything else. So I think it's pretty straightforward.
Okay. Does that sound good? Okay. That being said,
Thank you.
the calendar that you just shared with us, do we have access to the dates on the traditional one
I can put that in the.
in the weekly, so we
Absolutely.
can review that before we vote on it?
Yes, and And we'll still finish the process with finalizing EA input, and then I will get this to the board, absolutely.
Okay, so yes,
Yes.
two things happening in parallel.
Yep.
I just want to make sure we're not skipping one.
Not
Okay,
at all.
perfect.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
So when should Ridge families expect this survey?
So I would say maybe we would open it by early next week. I just want to make sure we have everything in a row, and I'm not the one delivering on the logistics of it. So if we just give a couple days, we're a little short staffed in some of our departments. So if we could say maybe by like Tuesday, Monday, we have a holiday. So it would probably go out Tuesday. And then that way we can work with our building principal to send a notice and reminders and all of that good stuff.
Okay, we have two more discussion items. 8.02 master agreement with Nicholas and Associates.
I actually added a third. I apologize, but
yes,
because
two more.
yes. Oh, pass it. Yes,
Two
thank
more.
you.
I had
Sorry.
it, yes.
But I do want to make a point. I did add 8.03 after the board packet went out as a discussion item. So just in case you didn't see that previously, that is new information.
Right.
8.02, Ron, we'll cover that one.
All right, thank you. So for 8.02, it's about our construction manager. We need somebody to assist us with the Brentwood addition. Our staff, obviously, we're not the experts in terms of every single piece of what it takes to put on that set addition. So we will see a master would be up for approval next month, pending the board vote. So we just wanted to give you guys a heads up. We'll have that master agreement with the board in the Friday update.
Mm-hmm. And that just means Nicholas is the day-to-day project manager on the project, relaying information to us that they get from every single contractor on.
That's correct.
Any other questions on that? No? Okay, that moves us on to 8.03, educational alignment assessment proposal for the remaining 11 schools through Wold.
Yes, so we have verbally talked about this, and this is part of that really creating that big picture, kind of holistic plan that we want for our facilities moving forward. So this is kind of that missing puzzle piece. We had already completed these educational alignment assessments with Wold for our 3 junior highs as well as Brentwood. So now we have asked them to submit a proposal for the 11 remaining schools, and they want to kick that off as soon as possible. So we're actually hoping that maybe either we could sneak an action item in at the January 22nd meeting, or really get things kickstarted right after our February 12th board meeting upon approval. It's per their same rate, $7,000 per school. It involves, again, those focus groups. They do building walkthroughs. They look at the interior, the exterior, the educational use of the building. You are familiar with their reports as they have presented those out, and they would look at kicking off in February with the completion and reports to the board by August of 2024, which is exciting. And then that will help us kind of kick off and look at how do we really look holistically as a district for some of our long-term facilities planning.
Can I ask a question about 8.02 and 8.03? These, I'm sure not, if otherwise we would be going through this. These are two things that don't need to be going through like bids or.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would just say on this, I think my sense from our previous discussions as a board was we want to get a holistic plan for everything. And this would then be taking place in parallel with the existing Brentwood work going forward as sort of the most critical spot. But we know there are other hot spots out there that we have to get a handle on as part of a big cohesive
I think
plan.
a good thing for them to also add into their survey is which buildings are capable of preschool.
DLC, yeah.
Yeah, and it'll be great because they'll also be looking at the ELC, and so they'll have some good to really create, parity of spaces across our programs. So I think it'll help them not just look at everything in isolation, but what those long-term visions are.
Okay, any more discussion on that?
For the 8.02, do we know the cost, or is it just informational for now, and are we going to be finding out the details later? I'm just curious because typically when you're talking about the construction manager, That's a lot of money. So
If I recall, it's a percentage based on the Brentwood stuff we approved last time. It was in there somewhere in one of the agreements.
and what was the percentage?
So once there's final approval of the drawings and the position, whatever we're doing, they receive a percentage of it, and that is what we'll share. We're working and finishing that up, but Nicholas has a lot of experience in the area. There aren't many CMs out there that would just do this type of schoolwork, and it's something that our staff is not capable of doing.
I understand, completely understand the need. I'm not questioning the need.
Yeah, no.
I'm just curious about the fee, because typically, I mean, is the percentage based on the estimated construction cost, or is it based on what Waldo is going to charge us to get through the drawings and approvals and all that stuff?
Yeah, it's going to be based on the cost of the project.
The actual cost,
Yeah.
right?
So
whatever
then-
we finally approve, it's
And what they'll do is, so the first maybe 10% of the work, we owe them a certain payment. The next 50%, we owe them a certain payment. And then what they'll do is they'll track that as it
Correct.
goes in.
Correct. I'm going back to my concern is we're talking about $10 to $20 million of a project, right?
Correct.
If we're talking about even 1%, that's already a nice big fee, which
Right.
would normally require a bid to go out, right?
Not with this type. Nicholas, so master agreements such as this with Nicholas and Associates, they do a specialized. It's almost like having like an architect. But once you have an established relationship with them, you do not go out to bid with it. And this is one of those examples. And to be frank, I don't know if any other CM right now who could even do this job.
Because we use them. Was it on the roof? I don't know why their names.
No, they're doing all the work right now in Palatine, I believe in Arlington Heights.
Oh.
They're regional, but they're out of Mount Prospect.
Oh, I thought we used them for like the entrance work.
That was energy. That was CTS.
Ah.
That's an energy. That was a different type of company,
Okay.
and that one the fees were still built into that. Whereas Nicholas is more of they handle the day-to-day, the step-by-step. The fees are exorbitant, but it's part of doing business with doing in addition with this. I mean, we're going to be paying fees to them. We're going to be paying fees to the architects. We're going to be paying contingencies that will probably get the money back. Furniture, there's a lot of underlying costs. It's not just the cost of the construction.
Do we remember what's the percentage? Do you know from the top of your head?
I can look for that one. I can find it. Just so you know, too.
Can you send it
Yeah.
out in the weekly? And
I
we'll
will.
go over it at the next facilities as well. I think it's
Absolutely.
That'd be good.
Good idea.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I think it is one of those specialized services that is exempt from the bidding process. So it is very typical, but I understand. It's a good question to ask why wouldn't we go out and shop this?
Mhm.
It's because we get that level of expertise that's been here with the
And
project.
and part of it too is that architect firms and CM firms have, I would say they've done a very good job down in Springfield, so that when you do go out to bid, you cannot ask for a price. You pick the firm, and then they give you the price of what they cost. So that's one of the 8 balls that we have behind us if we were to try something like that.
And any further questions on discussion items? Okay, so that brings us to section 9.0 education, and I'm going to start off here with some melancholy news. I would say today, Dr. Bresnahan and myself received a resignation letter from Mardell Schumacher. I would like to read her letter and then say a little bit about her. So this is what was sent to us today. It has been my great pleasure to have served for 35 years on the District 59 School Board. I've always been dedicated to the success and wellness of the children in our district, and I am proud of the work I have done to advance those goals. I've enjoyed visiting with teachers in the schools and have been happy to listen to the concerns of parents and working towards what is best for our students. It has been my privilege to have served this district, and I am thankful to those who have voted to re-elect me and continued to give me their confidence. Sadly, I need to resign from the board effective today. I called Mardell once I received this, and I spoke with her. She is in good spirits. She was very sort of resigned to this as something that she needed to do for personal reasons going forward. She extended all her best wishes to everyone here, all of her fellow board members. I just want to say how appreciative I have been of Mardell's guidance since I've been on the school board. She did a really good job of setting an example of what a school board member does and who they are. I think I've had my disagreements with Mardell, but she knew how to state her case and explain what she was thinking, and yet do it in a way that was respectful, and we maintained a friendship. And I really grew to trust her guidance and really listen to her and appreciate what she did for the board. So I can't express how much I'm going to miss her on the board. This does start some business that we then have to take care of. We will be following up with putting out requests for applications to fill that seat. We have a 60-day deadline, which means for my fellow board members, we're going to have a few special meetings to plan questions and questionnaires, that sort of thing that we're going to need to take care of. It's not a responsibility that I think any of us are particularly happy about having to do, but it's something I think we'll all sort of strive to do our best. Right. All right.
No, yeah, it's definitely sad news. I don't know how it was for the three of you, but I remember when I joined, like, first meeting, she pulled me aside and here's what you need to know about this, or that means this, or, you know, kind of explaining what the acronyms were, and really kind of held my hand those first couple of things. So it's and there's going to be plenty of opportunities to celebrate the work that she's done in the coming months when we do our celebrations here with staff and such. But kind of hitting on what Joe said, there's going to be a lot of work on our plates here going forward as far as the interviewing process and those kind of meetings and those kind of discussions as to filling the seat. So there's some work to be done, and some obviously some changes on the board here.
And I think we will, after the meeting, there'll be a press release sent out
Yes,
to the community.
Absolutely. So we will, make that public. And I think, if I can just speak for myself, that I think her absence has been felt and will continue to be felt. I think it is very rare to come across a board member who has that level of history and knowledge and such enthusiasm and dedication for the work that she did. She truly is a historian of this district. And I think we've seen the evidence of that time and time again through her many copies and things that she has kept and preserved. And I look forward to more opportunities where hopefully she can, continue to share those things with us, and just wish her absolutely all the best, and look forward to opportunities to celebrate her in person and thank her personally for her service and commitment to this district.
It's definitely just to mirror what you just said. She did. I know she pulled me aside, and not just here, but over the phone, or I actually step by her place so we can have longer conversations, which typically came out to be a lot longer and more in depth than I could ever ask for, which were very much appreciated and insightful. So I'm never complaining about those. But those were definitely great. She's a wealth of knowledge that we're gonna miss. It's 25 years. I don't think
35 years.
35. Yes, sorry, 35. My math is off. 80 since 88. I mean, that is. I don't think there's many boards out there that can say we have a member that was guiding us for 35 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, think about that. That's like 20. I just did the math here on my calculator. 2058. That's like you guys resigning in 2058. It's a long time.
And you're right before us. You're right before us.
Yeah. That is a long. Yeah, that is a long time. That is a long time, but a lot of work. A lot of good work.
I just want to say again, thank you so much, Mardell, for all of your service to this community and these kids. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say ditto to everything. And I was born in 85, so I went to school here in 59 under Mardell's leadership. So it's I'm humbled to be able to follow her.
Okay, moving on to regular board reports. I'll just say I had a chance to visit the ELC in Holmes. Go visit the ELC if you get a chance. Seeing the little kids is it's just inspiring to get a chance to see the real little ones there. I visited Holmes, ELC, Grove, Bird, and Rupley since the last meeting. After my finals week.
And I'd like to
spent a
thank
lot
all
of
the
time
building leaders who welcomed him the
I-
week before winter break.
which was fine because the kids were having fun. They were just goofing.
Okay, let's send them a survey about that. Let's go.
All right, go
real fast. I attended the insurance committee meeting a couple weeks ago. Really interesting information just as far as the amount of money that the district has to pay for the prescriptions and the medical care that we provide for our staff. Just kind of the management there. It's really eye-opening stuff as far as kind of the level of detail that we have to get into. So that was interesting, but that's the only committee meeting we had. All of you should have received your fall newsletters from the communication committee. So we're always looking for feedback on how to improve those. But that's it for me.
All right. Okay. So that moves on to any informational items.
No, we are glad to have kids back and all our staff back. Had a great opening or winter break institute day yesterday. Lots of good feedback from that, and excited for a great second half of the year.
Okay. And we don't have a close session, do we? No. Okay. So then can I get a motion to adjourn?
One last thing. Happy New
Oh.
Year.
Yes. Happy New Year to everyone. Yes. Can I get a motion to adjourn in this Happy New Year?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. I'll second that. And it
All right, I'll do
is, yeah,
I'll
8:50.
step in here. Roll call. Zach.
Aye.
Spino, absent. Johnson.
Aye.
Antia, aye. Sager.